You cannot buy a Waffle House. Not for $1 million, not for $10 million. There is no application, no franchise fee, no listing you can find online. Because Waffle House does not sell locations to the public. Zero. And that one fact changes almost everything about how people think this business works. Most people assume Waffle House runs like every other roadside chain. Pay a fee, sign a contract, get your own store. It doesn't. Nearly every single Waffle House in the country, all 1,900 plus of them, is owned and operated directly by the company itself. So if the door to ownership is closed, why are we even talking about what it costs to own one? Because there's a real path in, it just isn't the one people expect. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what that path looks like, along with what it actually costs to run a location like this day to day, whether you're inside the company or building something similar on your own. This is Owned Economics, and we're breaking down what it actually costs to own a Waffle House.
The reality check. From the outside, a Waffle House looks like the simplest business on the planet. Yellow sign, a counter, a grill, a menu that hasn't changed much in decades. It's open every single hour of every single day, including Christmas, including hurricanes. That reliability is so well known that federal disaster teams have informally used whether a local Waffle House is open as a rough gauge of how bad a storm actually is. Here's what people don't see. Running a restaurant that never closes is one of the hardest operational puzzles in the entire food business. Every other diner gets to shut down, restock, and reset overnight. A Waffle House never gets that luxury. Staffing has to cover every single hour. Food costs have to work at 3 a.m. just as well as they do at 9 a.m. And the equipment has to survive a workload most kitchens never see. Because a grill that runs non-stop for 20 years takes a different kind of beating than one that shuts off every night. There's also a structural piece almost nobody clocks going in. Because Waffle House doesn't sell franchises to the public, the real path to running one isn't writing a check. It's getting hired and working your way up. The company promotes almost entirely from within, and long-term managers can eventually earn actual equity in the company. That's a completely different ownership model than a McDonald's or a Chick-fil-A, and it's exactly why so many of the numbers people search for around this business don't actually exist in public form. But here's what the numbers actually look like. Chapter 1. What it actually costs to build a Waffle House-style diner. Since there's no franchise fee to report here, the real number worth understanding is what it costs to build and open an independent 24-hour diner of similar size and format, because that's the closest real-world comparison available, and it's exactly what a lot of independent diner owners are working with when they compete against a Waffle House down the street. Real estate and site work. A small freestanding diner footprint, typically 1,500 to 2,500 square feet, needs a corner lot or highway-adjacent parcel with strong visibility and easy in-and-out access. Depending on the market, land and site prep can run anywhere from $150,000 in a smaller town to well over $500,000 near a major interstate exit, where that visibility premium gets steep fast. Building construction. A compact diner shell built to handle round-the-clock use typically runs $300,000 to $600,000, depending on materials and local labor costs. That figure covers the structure, but not the kitchen equipment that has to survive non-stop grill time. Commercial ranges, flat-top griddles built for heavy daily cycling, refrigeration and ventilation systems rated for continuous operation. Industry estimates put that equipment package at $150,000 to $250,000 for a diner built to run every hour of the day. Licensing and permitting. Health department permits, food service licenses, and signage permits are typically far less expensive here than in a full-service bar or restaurant with alcohol, usually $5,000 to $15,000 total, since there's no liquor licensing hurdle to clear. Initial inventory and opening capital. First food orders, small wares, uniforms, and point-of-sale systems generally add another $30,000 to $50,000, plus a real cash reserve, because a 24-hour operation bores through working capital differently than a business that closes at night. Payroll never actually pauses.
add it all up, and building a comparable independent 24-hour diner realistically lands between $650,000 and $1.4 million, depending entirely on land cost and market. That's a wide range, and it should be. This is industry estimate territory, not confirmed company data, since Waffle House itself doesn't publish these figures.
Chapter 2. How a business like this actually makes money. Here's the part that surprises people. A diner like this isn't leaning on one big-ticket item. It's leaning on volume, speed, and repetition, hour after hour, all day long. Breakfast items. Eggs, waffles, hash browns, and bacon typically make up the largest share of sales, often 55 to 65% of total revenue industry-wide for a breakfast-forward diner format. And the ingredients themselves are inexpensive relative to the price charged, which keeps food cost percentages manageable even at low-ticket prices. Lunch and dinner service. Because the doors never close, the same kitchen that runs breakfast all morning pivots into burgers, melts, and plate lunches through the afternoon and evening, typically another 25 to 30% of revenue. This is what makes the 24-hour model work financially. The same fixed costs, staff, and building are generating sales across 3 separate day parts instead of just one. Late night and overnight traffic. This is the piece most competitors don't have access to at all. Bars closing at 2 a.m., shift workers, truckers, travelers. Overnight sales are typically a smaller slice, often 10 to 15% of daily revenue, but they cover payroll during hours most restaurants would simply be dark, turning what looks like a cost center into its own modest profit contributor. That's before you even factor in ticket speed. A diner format like this depends on turning tables fast. A full breakfast rush can seat, serve, and turn a 4-top in under 20 minutes. And that speed is what allows a small building to generate meaningful daily revenue without needing a huge dining room. Would you still call this a simple business after hearing that? Most people wouldn't. The simplicity is on the surface. Underneath it, it's a precision operation built around speed and constant motion. Chapter 3. Operating costs. This is where a 24-hour diner either holds together or falls apart, because nothing about running around the clock is cheap. Labor. This is typically the single largest ongoing cost, often 30 to 38% of revenue for a 24-hour diner format, higher than a typical restaurant that only operates 12 or 14 hours a day. Every shift needs a cook and at least one server around the clock, 7 days a week, which means payroll never fully rests. A single location can run a monthly labor cost of $40,000 to $70,000 once payroll taxes and workers' comp are included. Food and cost of goods. Because the menu leans on inexpensive breakfast staples, food cost typically runs 28 to 32% of food revenue, genuinely efficient by restaurant standards, and one of the reasons this format survives on thin ticket prices. Utilities. Running grills, fryers, and refrigeration non-stop, plus lighting and HVAC that never shuts off, typically pushes utility costs to 6 to 9% of revenue, noticeably higher than a business that powers down at night. Maintenance and equipment wear. This is the cost most people underestimate. Equipment that runs continuously breaks down faster than equipment that gets nightly rest. Industry estimates put ongoing maintenance and equipment replacement at $15,000 to $30,000 a year per location, and that's before factoring in a griddle or compressor failure during a busy rush, which can cost thousands in lost sales on top of the repair bill itself. Supply chain and delivery costs. Because a 24-hour diner needs fresh food arriving on a tight schedule with no room for a bad delivery day,
Many operators pay a premium for more frequent, smaller deliveries rather than the bulk weekly drops a typical restaurant might use. That reliability costs more per unit, but it protects against running out of a core ingredient during a busy overnight rush when there's no backup plan. Insurance. General liability and property insurance for a 24-hour food operation typically runs $12,000 to $25,000 a year, reflecting the added risk profile of a business that's staffed and open at every hour, including the highest risk overnight window. That's a lot of fixed costs stacked on top of a low-ticket menu. Here's the honest answer for why it still works. Volume. A location doing steady traffic across 3 day parts can absorb these costs in a way a slower, part-time diner never could.
Chapter 4. profit margins, and real numbers. Full-service and quick casual restaurants typically run net margins of 3% to 9% industry-wide. A well-run 24-hour diner format, because of its low food costs and high table turn speed, tends to land on the stronger end of that range, often 6% to 10% in a solid location. Though, again, these are industry estimates for this type of format, not confirmed figures from Waffle House itself, since the company is privately held and does not release location-level financials. Let's put real numbers on it. Say a single 24-hour diner in this format pulls in $1.3 million in annual revenue, a realistic figure for a steady, well-located unit. Cost of goods, food, roughly $377,000. Labor, roughly $455,000. Utilities and maintenance, roughly $130,000. Insurance, licensing, and miscellaneous, roughly $70,000. That leaves around $268,000 before debt service and taxes, a gross operating margin near 20%. After financing costs on the initial build-out and equipment, along with taxes, a realistic net margin lands closer to 6% to 9%, or roughly $78,000 to $117,000 a year in true bottom-line profit for an owner-operated version of this model. To put that in perspective, that's in the range of a solid monthly paycheck, stacked 12 times over, except it's tied directly to how well the operation runs every single hour, not a fixed salary that shows up whether the place is busy or dead. And remember that overnight window we mentioned earlier? It's a small percentage of daily revenue, but because payroll during those hours is already committed either way, even a modest overnight crowd can be the difference between a location that clears a strong annual margin and one that just breaks even. That's the real lever hiding inside this business.
Chapter 5. What ownership actually looks like here, and what separates success from failure. Since buying in from the outside isn't an option, the real risks and the real path forward both look different than they would for a typical franchise business. The real path to ownership. Waffle House promotes almost entirely from within, and long-tenured managers and unit leaders can eventually earn actual equity in the private company, turning years of operational experience into genuine ownership stake. It's a slower path than writing a check, but it's a real one, and it rewards people who master the operational side of this business rather than people who simply have capital to invest. Labor turnover. Restaurant industry turnover runs high everywhere, sometimes over 70% annually, and a 24-hour format makes overnight shifts especially hard to staff consistently. The operators who succeed build genuine internal promotion tracks and pay competitively for overnight hours, which keeps their best people from walking out the door to a competitor down the street. Equipment fatigue. Non-stop operation wears out grills, fryers, and refrigeration faster than a standard restaurant schedule. The locations that stay profitable treat preventive maintenance as a fixed cost, not an occasional expense, catching small issues before they become an expensive overnight breakdown during a packed rush. Location risk. A 24-hour diner lives and dies by traffic patterns. Highway visibility, nearby industry with shift workers, and nightlife density all matter enormously. The operators who do the homework on 24-hour traffic counts before committing to a site save themselves years of underperformance. Menu discipline. It's tempting to keep expanding a menu to chase more sales, but every new item adds prep complexity that a lean 24-hour kitchen has to execute perfectly at 4 a.m. with a skeleton crew. The businesses that hold on to a focused, fast menu tend to outperform the ones that try to be everything to everyone. Brand and reputation risk. For an independent operator building something similar, standing out against a beloved, decades-old institution with near universal name recognition is its own challenge. Customers already have deep loyalty built around consistency and nostalgia, and a new diner has to earn that trust one visit at a time, instead of inheriting it. What separates the operations that thrive from the ones that struggle usually comes down to 3 things:
Staffing the overnight hours well enough that they become genuinely profitable instead of just a cost of staying open. Treating maintenance as routine rather than reactive. And for anyone inside the company, playing the long game on promotion rather than expecting a shortcut into ownership.
Everything in this video is general business education based on industry averages and publicly available estimates, not confirmed internal data from Waffle House, which is a privately held company. It's not direct financial, legal, or investment advice for your specific situation. Anyone seriously considering opening an independent diner concept should work with a local accountant, attorney, and commercial real estate broker before committing any capital. So here's the real question. Knowing that you can't buy your way into this one, that the only real path is years of work and internal promotion, would you still want in? Or does that change how appealing this business actually is to you? Drop your answer in the comments and tell me why. If you want the next breakdown, maybe a business people assume is easy to buy into but actually isn't, subscribe to Owned Economics 2, and I'll see you in the next one.